Welcome to Wolf's Watch. Today we have Dennis Mellen with him. He is a speaker, a leadership consultant, and best-selling author. He is also a recognized authority on leadership as a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel and a 20-year airline fleet captain in charge of 550 pilots. Dennis's years of experience bring education, inspiration, and entertainment to a variety of audiences through his positive leadership training. You may have caught him on ABC, NBC, CBS, podcasts, and radio shows. He speaks a lot. He recently spoke on stage at the United States Air Force Academy with four-time Olympian luge competitor Ruben Gonzalez and in Grand Rapids at the Leading Voice Summit. Please welcome Dennis Mellen. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity.
It is, and I know I caught you off guard there a little bit because on Wolf's Watch, I always go by Wolf, which is my nickname. It plays off of my last name. And as you're watching this, Dennis and I've had a chance to talk with each other. We were at an event a few weeks ago and resulted in an opportunity to invite him onto the show. And you're in for a treat. Make sure you've got something to write with, because here's someone that has had two careers in high-level leadership positions. So I got something to take notes with. You should too. Speaking of which, Dennis, thank you for your service.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. Yeah.
20 years in the Air Force is that's a long time. So you were a career Air Force officer, lieutenant colonel, which is a great achievement in its own right. And then you went on to a second career in commercial airlines and training pilots. How did you make that transition, and what attracted you to the Air Force, and how did you make the transition to civilian leadership?
Well, it kind of goes back to when I was 10 years old at my father's Air Force base, sitting at the end of the runway, when this F-4 Phantom comes screaming by in full afterburner. You could feel it throbbing in your lungs as it went by, and I'm pumping my fist, looking at my dad, going, "Yeah, Dad, that's what I want to do when I grow up."
Oh yeah.
Of course, my wife says I haven't reached that point yet, but that's another discussion itself.
We age, but we don't have to grow up.
That's right. There's still a 17-year-old trapped in this body.
That's right.
That got me started. I went to the Air Force Academy thinking, well, it's probably the cheapest way to become a professional pilot. And so I went there, went to pilot training, started flying with the Air Force at about the 6-year point. I started thinking, I can do the same thing in the Air Force Reserves and fly for a commercial airline. And I got hired by Alaska Airlines, and I guess the rest is history, right?
Yes. And because Alaska Airlines, that's a great organization as well.
Yeah, it is. It's a little known fact, but it's the 5th largest air carrier in the United States right now. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize they were, I knew they were very substantial, but no, 5th largest. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Was it a big transition from leading in a military role to leading in the civilian world?
Surprisingly, there's a lot of commonality between training programs and the structure of who's in charge and the captain of a flight is in charge when it's in the air. There's not much doubt about that. What happens up there in the flight deck with the captain and the first officer, the captain rules. It's like the captain of a ship ruling his situation or her situation on the ship. So
which we really in the civilian world we've borrowed a lot of what we do from a leadership perspective, particularly with flights with ships from the military.
Well, it's amazing. We still use a lot of the same terms, even between the Navy and the Air Force. There's a lot of the same terms, but there's a lot of commonality between it. So I wouldn't say it was seamless, but it certainly it wasn't a quantum jump either. So
good, because sometimes that can be there can be a challenge, because depending on where what part of the civilian world people are moving into, it's a hot mess compared to how the military is structured and the way things are done. And there's a lot of differences in expectations at times.
Well, I'm also finding that a lot of the companies that I'm working with prefer to hire somebody that has a military background because they that there's going to be some sort of structure, some sort of standardization, uh, some discipline, if you will. A lot of times,
Yes.
people that don't have that background, they can get it equally to the same level as everyone else, but there's a learning curve or a University of Hard Knocks, life happens university type thing, where you learn your lessons the hard way. Seems like I learned a lot of my lessons the hard way too, but that's beside the point too.
Yeah, me too. And I should be a lot smarter given some of the experiences and knocks that I've had. But that's several shows all on its own if we could dive into that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask also, in terms of leadership development, it seems that the military is much better organized, consistently does a much better job at developing leaders than the civilian, particularly in the business world.
Well, there's a lot of businesses that have quite substantial professional development programs that they're using, and they vary them to fit the circumstances. If you're not growing, if you're not, I have always figured I'm never going to be a 10 on the leadership scale, but in the pursuit of a 10, maybe I'll achieve excellence in there somewhere. And that's kind of a paraphrase of a Vince Lombardi quote, but I like to use it that way because you should never stop in trying to improve your leadership. Engaged employees are so important, and the leadership you provide is the single biggest input to the culture and whether you're going to have, that elite performance that we're always looking for.
And yet at the time that we need it most, it seems that employee engagement is at an all-time low or close to it.
Yeah, I think part of it or most of it has been the pandemic and how we've become disassociated. I don't know about you. When the pandemic started, so much of my work is face-to-face live, and Zoom just wasn't an adequate replacement for it. I'm a fist bumper, handshaker, and a hugger, and that just doesn't make the connection on Zoom that it does in person. So we lost out on a lot during that time, and I think people became disengaged, and we saw this with the current in vogue terms of Great Resignation and quiet quitting and things like that. Not that those haven't been problems in the past, but I don't think it's been to the degree that we've been working with lately.
On quiet quitting, I've got a question, and let me give you some context first. It was at an event last weekend, a live event, and I was with one of my mentors and another gentleman that's been very successful in business, and we were having a conversation about that, about the Great Resignation and then the quiet quitting and the challenges from a business standpoint, because they both run very substantial mid-sized businesses. And the mentor that I referenced, he was a Army Ranger A-team leader, and I shot back a challenge question as I go, well, specifically on the quiet quitting, isn't that our fault as leaders for not having the work standards set? If it's hurting our companies, isn't it our fault for not having the work standards set at a level where if people are doing the minimum that we're asking them to, we are still doing well as a business?
Yeah, I don't think
it wasn't a popular question, and I don't like doing that because he's 6'4" and he has me standing tall a lot.
But I think it goes beyond the standardization. That's kind of the old style leadership where we insist that you behave this way, perform this way, meet this sales goal, things like that. I think what is incumbent on a good leader or someone that's approaching good leadership is to inspire and to give purpose. If I can connect you with the company's purpose, or even on a project team, the project's purpose, and you can see where it fits into your own goals and your own purpose, then we might be able to get that elite performance that we're all striving for. So I think that's an important facet of leadership.
Well, and it sounds like everybody's capable, elite performance, elite leadership levels. To me, that's implies there's a lot more that people can do if we believe in them and allow them to do.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. One of the things that I see in a lot of companies is I become a subject matter expert on aviation or on how to build this widget on the assembly line, and people tend to think, okay, we've got a leadership position, we've got a management position that's opened up. Let's put this guy or this girl into that position, but it's a different skill set. Leadership doesn't. You should have some modicum of subject matter expertise, whatever industry you're working in, but you need to learn how to be a leader. And I think the leadership portion of it starts really in the onboarding process when you start at a company, because you're getting the culture and the flavor of the company, and you're starting to connect it with your own purpose. And if you have purpose, then
I'm sorry. I need to. I want to interrupt and I apologize for that, because
okay.
You mentioned onboarding, and that's a topic that always gets me going, because so many companies have little or no real onboarding process.
Well, my wife.
You look at it and go, well, no wonder you're having challenges with people knowing what to do and how to do. The companies I worked for before I went into business for myself, of all the companies I worked for, fortunately, the first company out of college really had a strong onboarding process. I was fortunate to go to work for Hughes Aircraft, which dates me a little bit. But other than that, all the other companies, they really was like, okay, here you go. Policy and procedure manuals over there. I mean, nobody really looks at that. Here's what we need you to achieve. We'll talk to you in a week. Yeah. It's like, really?
Well, my wife started a brand new job during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And basically her onboarding process was to look at these videos on Zoom and then come to work and try and apply it. I think what was missing was probably some, the whole teaching gamut, where you introduce a subject, then you show it, then you allow them to experience it, then you allow them to work on their own. I think that's part of the onboarding process. And I like to think of it as really, I go a step further. I really think that onboarding and that leadership process starts in the interview, because you're already weeding people out.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And you've got to hire for that next level of performance that you're looking for.
In our companies getting better, or at least paying more attention to that part of it, that initial screening, to make sure that they at least have clarity on what's really needed for the position. An example, the last time I was involved in hiring someone, we got 3,000 resumes. Human resources honed that down to 300. We found 25 that were actually related to what we were looking for. We interviewed 13, 14 people, and we left the position open for another 9 months, because we just didn't, it was critical, strategically critical. And we're going, it's going to do more harm to fill this with the wrong person than to wait until we find that person.
I wish it could get easier, but it is an important process, and you don't want to just fill the position. They've gone to, because we have computers now, there's massive amounts of applications that are just sent out randomly. And but on the other side, they've got computer software that will scan for keywords, where you can weed out some of them. If you don't mention commercial pilot, then you're going to not even be put in the pile from the computer scan. And then when you finally interview, unless you're desperate, you really need to make sure that you're getting the quality employee that you're looking for, and don't short circuit the interview process, because after sitting through literally hundreds of thousands of pilot interviews, weeding out became fairly easy as long as we put the effort in during the interview and the post interview. And in particular, when they're in the waiting room with the receptionist, what was the reaction? We just sent them packing because of the things that they were. I mean, it was so bad. One time, the guy was hitting on the receptionist. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
not a good start.
Automatic. You're out of here.
Well, I interviewed a gentleman who owned 10 restaurants, and one of the things that they did in there, they had a very innovative interview process to really, because they were more worried about fit within the team. And one of the things that they would do is they'd greet them at, like the hostess normally would when you walk into a restaurant, and they would always leave a napkin on the floor between where they greeted them and where they were walking them to the room for the interview.
Oh yeah.
And if that person didn't stop and pick up the napkin, then they're going, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
They'd still go through the interview. It'd just be a very brief and polite interview. Go, okay, thank you. Because he goes, look, I want people that are obsessive about customer service and about things being just so for the customer experience. And if they're not paying attention to that, they're not going to be a good fit.
Absolutely. And there's a good video online showing Dak Prescott, the quarterback for Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
Primo guy, by the way. But
and to all of my Rams fans, friends, go Cowboys. I'm sorry, I just had to say that.
That's okay. Shameless plug, right? But the video shows him literally flipping a plastic water bottle into a trash can, and it hits and falls off to the side. Well, here's this guy that's making millions, a star quarterback. He gets up, picks, it could have been left there. Somebody would have picked it up eventually, but no, attention to detail. Yeah. He went over there, he picked it up himself and put it in there, and then sat back, got the iPad, started looking at what the last plays were and where the secondary was and all those things. But it was pretty impressive, really.
Yeah. But I interviewed a retired Navy SEAL, Dom Razzo, a few years ago, and one of the comments that he made stuck with me. He said, I never want to be. He goes, I never want to be the guy that's become so big that I can't sweep the floor with everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
That part of the humility factor that goes into what Jim Collins called level 5 leadership in his Good to Great book.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's leadership by example, prime way of showing it, a great way of showing that you're part of the team too. I'm not above this. And I think that's why companies have gone away from executive bathrooms and parking places and things like that, because, as a leader, you're no longer in that elite class. You're the servant leader. I don't know your job completely, Jeff, but I can help you as a leader. What resources do you need? What are you missing? What can I do to make the job easier? And have I made a connection with you? Only when I've made that connection can I get that trust and get that commitment back from you, And it's a different ball game. Nowadays, you really need to pay attention to those employees and those team members.
Yeah, very different from the perception of, leadership is about, issuing orders from on high.
Yeah, and it goes beyond that too. Just showing gratitude. I used to have an admin. That we used to walk. Or I used to walk by her desk, and we had this whole routine where we did the name game. I'd go by and I go, Tina, Bobina, Banana, and she would echo it back, not even look back from her work. And she'd go, Denny, Bobini, and then that was our greeting. And it's, hey, I see you working hard. I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to greet you and appreciate what you're doing. It was great way to show gratitude.
And what you mentioned earlier about still being a 17-year-old in some ways, feeling it's keeping that playfulness that kid-like
Yeah.
playfulness in what we're doing, which is golden.
Yeah. It goes to how do I create that atmosphere where the
Hmm.
employee says to himself, "Hey, I get to go to work today," instead of "I have to go to work," or "Oh man, it's Monday. I can't wait for Friday." It's important to create that atmosphere, that culture like that, where it's fun.
Yes, yes. And it seems wow, I have like three different questions and I need to sort which one's going to be the
Yeah.
most appropriate. Um, let me start with this. This is jumping around a little bit because you rose to high levels of leadership in the Air Force, did the same in the airline industry. Did how you think about your role change as you're like having 550 pilots that you're responsible for example, in
Well,
the airline industry? Did your perspective change or how you viewed your role change?
yeah, it really did because I've never, of course, everyone battles that imposter syndrome, and you have to get over that. But once you kind of get the flavor of what your job is, and you've made those relationships, made those connections, um, then it becomes easier. You don't have, it's not like you and I are attacking a machine gun nest, where I have to bark orders out and you just have to obey them
Sure.
in the instant. But occasionally something might come up like that.
Well,
But
and that's a good. I want to pull that thread real quick too. It's like when you're attacking a machine gun nest, or if the building's on fire,
right,
that's a time for command and control leadership.
right,
It's like
exactly,
we need to not think about it. Everybody to the level that they know what to do. That's what's going to they're going to fall back on their habit. This is what needs to happen without
right,
thinking about it, as opposed to most of the time we don't necessarily need that level, but command and control has its place. It's just
right.
making sure it's the right context.
Yeah, situational leadership. You got to
Si-
read the situation.
Yes.
There's a great story about a Medal of Honor winner from the Vietnam War. Had his team up at some fire base up in the north area, and they came under attack, a 5 or 6 hour attack, where he was wounded several times, and he was helping each one of the gun emplacements, mortar emplacements. He ended up getting the Medal of Honor. But what I found interesting in the story is when he got to the presentation where he was allowed to speak, he started talking about the gratitude he had for the rest of his team, and he made it a point to say, during that entire 6 hour battle, I never issued one order, which to me
Wow.
implied I've trained them so well that we just know what needs to be done in this situation,
Mm.
or at all the gun mortar emplacements, they knew exactly what they needed, when they needed it, and what to do. No orders. And I thought, wow, what a perfect example of how to operate under duress, yet never having to tell anybody anything. It's more of, Jeff, what do you need? What can I
Yeah.
get you? Or
Yeah.
in this case, drag wounded around and bring more ammunition and things like that. But I thought that was uh, a, a really clear moment for me of situational leadership and how you develop it to that point. I think we should all aspire to that.
Yes. Well, and the power of preparedness,
Right.
which I think I've seen organizations that are struggling, and the time and resources that would go into preparing the staff
Right.
is easy to zero out in order
Right.
to get a short-term cost savings.
Right. And creating um, that atmosphere, that speak up culture, where anybody in the team can speak up without fear of retribution or shame. You
Hmm.
hold those positive, purposeful, productive conversations that lead to the innovation, that lead to new ideas, that lead to that elite performance that I referred to earlier.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had one organization that I did some work with. One of their mid-level managers, that we were having a discussion about, pulling ideas out for improvements in what they're doing. It's a large organization, so even in a mid-level management, we could be considered mid-level. It still had 100 75 to 125 people reporting to them. And the response was just like, no, you know what? We're going to get so many ideas that we can't use. It's just not worth it because we're going to get bombarded. I'm like, but what about those 1 or 2 pieces of gold that are going to make all the difference?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Exactly. And the other thing that I've seen lately that's working pretty good with companies is, in the Air Force or even in the Navy, we had exercises where we had an enemy force, a red team. If you have topics or problems that need to be fixed, one way of helping you is creating that red team that is the adversarial or the adversary for whatever is being proposed, to shoot holes in it. You've empowered them to speak up and to speak negative about things because they're on the red team. And this is going to make us better. That's exactly what happens in Top Gun and in the Air Force Red Flag exercises. Is we get better because we have a very competitive adversary in the exercise that we're doing. But think of it as it carries over into a boardroom or into a team project. Matt Dennis, you're assigned to be the red team. Shoot holes in every idea, but make them, make them clear, concise,
right,
and purposeful looks at what we're trying to do.
And does that help build a culture of or build more situational awareness and more thinking about the context, bigger context of
It
what
also
people are doing?
It also empowers those quiet people on your team
Mm.
because they might,
Yeah.
after weeks of not saying anything, because they're intimidated or because they're they've got issues with the company or something. Just think of it. You're taking that bitterness out of them by assigning them to be the adversary. And then when things are decided,
Ooh.
it comes out clearer to the team. This is the best option, or this is the way we want to go.
Oh, I like that. They get back to employee engagement.
Right. Exactly.
At a very deep level, because now it's okay to speak out,
right,
and point out that the emperor has no clothes in a sense.
Exactly. Well, the meeting after the meeting. Hey, did you hear what Dennis said in there? No, it's already been addressed probably, or that feeling has been expressed. And we in leadership, traditionally, we haven't looked at that feeling, that emotional intelligence that we're looking for, your emotional quotient. We always look at data, and data isn't going to show employee disengagement or that quiet quitting. It's not going to show. It'll show up indirectly in absenteeism, turnover, things like that, but it's not going to show its face in raw data where it's obvious. Oh, we've got some quiet quitters, or we've got some people that are just energy vampires. Is what we refer to in our training.
And yes, I like that, energy vampires. Wow.
Well, they come into the room
so true.
and they literally suck the energy out of it.
Yeah.
And
you can feel it. It's like you have a team meeting and one person comes in, you can just feel everybody kind of go, oh no.
Yeah. That's why in every meeting there should be some sort of status check. Hey, how what's on your mind today? Well, Joe over here has got 2 parents in long-term care. That's affecting his job, whether we want to admit it or not. Or Joanne's got 3 kids in college and she's struggling making the payments. That's going to affect her job. We need to be aware of it. We don't need to know all the details. One son's on drugs and the other one's not studying, and one of them is not attending classes. We don't know the details. We just know that trying to get those 3 kids through college or through a trade school or something is affecting her.
And then someone like me rolls in and says, okay, we're going to shake up what you're doing because we're going to do a process improvement. And then they're like,
yeah. Well, no, if you can help them or at least acknowledge it, once they get their
Mhm.
problem cleared up, or they're going to feel obligated to the team because they helped them or her, and now they're going to jump in to help somebody else.
Mhm.
Pay it forward type thing.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you
Sets
create
a
that
positive.
atmosphere?
Yes, create the atmosphere which has a positive vortex as opposed to a doom
Right.
loop, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to come back to what I derailed you from a little bit ago when we were talking about how your perspective shifted as your responsibilities grew, the size of the teams you led grew, and you were talking about how you built you focused on building relationships
Right.
throughout those steps to larger responsibilities, which then enabled you to be much more effective in broader leadership roles. Because
Right.
you see, I've seen entrepreneurs, business owners, really struggle with how what they need to do changes as they go from like 5 or 10 employees to 50 to 500.
Yeah. The way I like to express it is, and I'll ask him this. I'll say something along the lines of, your leadership is working perfectly for the results that you're getting right now. If you don't like those results, the first place to look at is at your leadership. And the second place to look at is, what am I doing to improve that leadership? And don't look at it as a cost in time or money. Look at it as an investment and uh, helping you inspire your team to that next level of performance that you're looking at. And there is a cost involved, but look at it as an investment. And as you develop your leadership and start inspiring people, there's no column on a financial statement that says, "Oh, uh, Dennis and Jeff got them to do this," and it's going to appear a little bit indirectly in absenteeism and turnover costs and retraining costs.
Mm-hmm.
They say it takes a year and a half to replace somebody to get them up to the same level of the person that's leaving.
A year and a half.
That's
My gosh.
a statistic, yeah.
My
And
gosh. Well,
I
after all of the expense of finding that person to begin with. So
right.
that's a major investment.
I interviewed, not the name drop, but I interviewed Brad Smith, the retired CEO of Intuit,
Mm-hmm.
the uh, tax TurboTax and all those guys. And
Yes,
one of
yes.
the things he insisted on was that they always have an exit interview with somebody, and they would literally tell them, "Dennis, you're welcome to come back anytime." Then think about how powerful that is. You go
Yeah.
away, find out grass is not greener. Now you come back, you're familiar with the culture, maybe even still up to speed with everything that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and you've rededicated yourself because you've experienced something else. You've rededicated yourself to the company. And I said,
Mm.
I love that. I'm gonna use that as a great story to people. Those exit interviews are very important. Obviously, if you lie, cheat, or steal,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
hasta la vista, baby. But
That's
yeah,
different. Yeah, different
yeah, that's
situation, right?
completely different. But if you're just leaving because you're not, why are you leaving? Well, I didn't feel like I had a purpose here, or I found this new startup that has really got me excited. Well, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it bombs and they come back. Welcome back, instead of, well, traitor.
Yeah.
Don't even bother coming back. We don't want to see you anymore.
Yeah.
It's still interrelationships that you're working with there, and it's
So leaves the door open to bringing that learning back into the organization, because they
right.
could go to a startup and it explodes and they
Yeah,
still end up coming back on some, you never know
yeah,
how the career path's going to
yeah,
work out.
yeah, yeah.
I like that.
It was an astounding statement. I know that he's not the origin of it. There's other people who use it, and people have said, "Oh yeah, we did that at our company too, something similar." But I still thought it's worth repeating to people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't punish them because they're leaving. Find out why they're leaving. What are you doing wrong? What is it that you can do better? It's that type of stuff that you've got to get those managers and leaders to realize, or even the senior leadership.
But if I ask a question like that, somebody might tell me something I really don't want to hear. That's kind of dangerous.
Well, I really don't want to hear like, I don't like working for you. Why?
Well, no, yeah, some ugly truth about the organization, or something that as a leader, if it's one of my employees, that is, as their boss, as a leader of their organization, they'll give me some feedback that I'm, it's like that could leave a mark, that could hurt emotionally.
It could, yeah. Well, think of it as, I like to say, feedback is the breakfast of champions.
I love that.
If you want a
Yes.
shortcut, if you want a shortcut to improvement, ask somebody where you need to improve. Yeah, it's hard, but if you've got that speak up culture where that occurs, and we don't look at it as, oh, you made this mistake, or you did this wrong, and look at it from the standpoint of what'd you learn from that?
Mm-hmm.
Because as long as the employees got some, our team members got some dedication to the company, all they want to do is be allowed to make a mistake, recover from it, take that lesson, and improve.
Well, and is that necessary to have a really robust competitive organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, how are you going to be successful if you don't know the problems?
When the onboarding process that I experienced at Hughes Aircraft, I mean, this was a while ago. It's painful to say how many years out loud, but it was fresh out of college. I moved to LA. My life is completely disrupted. And one of, the first couple of weeks on the job, I still remember they assigned me a mentor as part of the onboarding process. And one of the things that they had, one of their mantras that they taught all the newbies was, if you're right 40% of the time, you're a hero. If you're right 60% of the time, you walk on water.
Exactly.
And
you're not going to have a perfect season, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, who was it? The multi-million-dollar baseball players only hit 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
Batting
Yeah,
300.
exactly. I actually have a slide in my slide deck that I occasionally pull up, and it shows 10 questions, and it says things like single, grounded out, and then it ends up being the grade in red ink at the top is 3 out of 10, A+, because they've got to learn how to deal with failure and move forward. Learning baseball's brutal. By the way, I've been coaching baseball at the high school here locally for the last 10 years. So,
nice.
Yeah, I use that quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, sports, there's a lot that comes from, a lot of learning that can come from sports.
Yeah.
I want to come back to the overcoming setbacks.
Okay.
And talk about that. But when we measure something that's come up a few times when you were talking about, it doesn't really show up in a lot of the things that are really important from a leadership standpoint won't necessarily show up directly in things that we can measure. Do we put a lot of time, a lot of effort into measuring the wrong things because they're convenient, or just, not paying attention to the right things to be more effective as leaders?
Really, we really do. The tendency is this, throw out a metric, throw out something you want to accomplish, maybe a standard or whatever, and if you don't meet that, to point it out, and that's kind of management by exception. Whereas, think about it this way. Well, here was the metric. You needed to make this sales goal, and you came up short. Let's look at why. Because next quarter, we want you to meet or exceed that same metric. Why didn't you? What are some things that we can learn that you could have done differently or should have done and didn't know about? You got to have a thick skin if you're going to improve. And I think that's what sports teaches us. It teaches you how to fail and recover. Because I don't know anybody that's been in sports that has a perfect score or perfect all the time. They may occasionally get an Olympian that gets a 10 or whatever. I guess it's an 8 or 7, something like that. Now there's a perfect score, but that happens once or twice, but most of the time you're going to be a little bit short.
Yes,
So
and the difference can be between getting the gold medal and the silver medal can be measured in such minute changes
yeah,
that most of the rest of us wouldn't. That's why they're Olympians.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
they're running a race and it's
yeah.
10,000ths of a second or hundredths of a second that makes the
Well,
difference.
think about this. That Olympic competitor that I spoke with at the Air Force Academy,
Ruben Gonzalez.
Yeah, was a luge racer, and
I've always been fascinated by that because it is such an insane sport. As you're just real quickly, as you're watching this, if you have not seen an Olympic luge,
yeah,
after Dennis wraps up tonight, go look at it on YouTube because it is basically throwing your body on two. It's like taking the bottoms off of two pairs of ice skates and hanging on to those at 90 miles an hour going down a mountain.
And just the slightest movement of your body changes things. And he's the only guy that is only Olympian that's competed in 4 different decades. So he's an amazing guy and really an excellent speaker. It's cool to talk to him about how he trained for it. And he said, you start training, you're going to crash. Even when you're an expert at it, even when you're an Olympic competitor, you're going to crash, and
failure writ large in order
to
get into the game. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But as a leader on the issue of allowing people to fail, as a leader, aren't I risking anarchy? Does it reflect on me as being a poor leader if there's that much, that much chaotic activity going on? And how do I keep the business from failing if I'm not keeping things, just so?
It goes back to my Air Force instructing days and my instructing with Alaska Airlines. No pilot flies a perfect flight. And there's always something that you could have improved. There's 1,000 ways of doing something right and only 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of doing it wrong. But there's better ways. So we're always striving to find those better ways by holding an after action, so a post mission debrief, a simulator check ride debrief. Why, look at it this way, look at it that way. Allow them to make the mistakes. That eventually they're minute mistakes rather than big mistakes. There's no way when I started out flying that I would have been an Air Force pilot or Air Force captain or airline pilot flying the left seat. I mean, it takes years to get to that point because we've eliminated the big mistakes. Now we're just tweaking, trying to make it smoother, trying to make it more efficient. Yeah, and occasionally, some situation we dream up in a simulator or something like that, maybe it'll catch you. And but think about it. I'd rather it happen there and learn from it than happening in the air, where it's not like you can pull over to the side of the road and go, "Hey, there's a rest stop up here. We'll take care of the problem up here."
Yeah, let's stop and change the engine real quick, or we need to fix a tire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I've heard stand-up comedians, do skits and jokes along the lines of, it's like the captain comes on and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, if you look out the left window, you see, the number 2 engine's on fire, but nothing really to work out. If you look out the right window while we're fixing that, it's just unflappable." And again, the power of preparation and also the perspective of what is the role,
right?
The proper role in
well, that and you never. Even in business, you never stop trying to make it the improvement. Never stop. It's the Japanese adage: fall down 7 times, get up 8, because we're just going to keep going. And successful people, for the most part, have more failures that have happened in their life than the successes.
It's kind of one of the dirty little secrets, isn't it, of high performers?
Yeah, talk to Ruben Gonzalez. Ask him how many times he's crashed on the luge course. On the I mean, it's amazing. He tells some great stories.
He does. And from one of the threads, I want to get to overcoming setbacks next. Before that, um, one of the things that I'm hearing in our conversation is, as leaders, a lot of times it's having the right perspective, the right mindset about what does that really mean to be in a leadership role. And there's been a lot of misconceptions in perhaps unhelpful teaching around that.
Right. Well, it's not. You can't look at it as, okay, now I'm the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
Because all that does is encourage team members to do exactly what's in their job description and nothing more. And at 5:01 in the afternoon, you're not going to see them; they're gone. So it does have to do with your positive leadership and how those interrelationships you built create that culture. Because like I said earlier, a leader is the single biggest influencer to culture and performance.
Yes, absolutely. And the reality is, now this is, I've been wanting to get to this and promised that I would. There's always setbacks. It's just the way the world and life works. And it seems that from a leadership standpoint, one of the things that we need to do is just to accept that and be prepared for, okay, now we're going to respond.
Right.
There will be a setback. Now that's where the leadership really, where someone that's in a leadership role really shines, or find out, maybe we got the wrong person in that role.
Right.
Or didn't prepare that person.
Right. Well, and that's the basis of my first book, Takes More Than Heart. I got to a point where at age 56, I'd been flying 35, 40 years and still loved my job. And I'd taken up mountain bike riding, and I ended up having a heart attack where in the foothills of the Cascades east of Seattle, where
gosh,
so pretty remote,
out where there's no
and
no help.
I don't even remember this because two hikers happened upon me unconscious. They took me to the hospital. They called 911, and the EMTs came up the same hill that I had struggled with 100 pounds of equipment each, and then took me to a hospital a half hour away. On the way there, they had to shock me like 25 times and another 20 times in the ER. I mean, I'm so lucky to be here. But unfortunately, the long and short story of it is that was a defining moment. The day before, I flew my last flight, but I didn't know that. It was, you're never going to fly again. And that was a crushing blow. And I don't,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's the basis of the book. It Takes More Than Heart. I think I sent you some material on it, but it's available on Amazon. Changing the journey's challenges into opportunities. And it took a while to recover from that mentally, especially. I went through some pretty bad times there for a while. I didn't know I'm 56 years old. It's not like I can start over and launch a new career, but I did find that I could talk leadership and do coaching and make a difference there. And that got me excited again.
And there's a need. Even better than that, there's a hunger for it. It seems the timing's right to be able to step in with the leadership experience that you have and the ability to say, here, let me help you with your leadership journey.
Right.
Which you've demonstrated through the leadership roles you had in the military and then also in the airline industry.
Yeah, it's helped me have a totally different perspective than everybody's got a perspective based on their experiences, and it took a while to realize I still have something to give back, and whether I get paid $1 bazillion to do it or just barely get by. If I can make a difference with whoever I'm coaching or whatever team that I'm working with,
yes,
there's a lot of satisfaction in that.
Yes, and it seems, especially in the last 2 years, there's been a lot of opportunity, to help.
Yeah,
a lot of people that need some help.
You certainly don't want to be that proverbial old guy walking the hallways, talking about his football days and coulda, woulda, shoulda been in the NFL or Super Bowl, but for the knee injury, you know.
Oh,
No, that's looking
the character
backwards.
from Married with Children, where
Yeah,
the running joke was all he ever talked about was his glory days from high school, and he's in his
right.
mid-40s.
Why
Yeah.
does that have to be the highlight of your life? High school. Find a highlight of your life. That keep finding that highlight. Make a new highlight. You know.
It's a highlights reel, right? It's not
Right. Right.
we keep adding to
Look
it.
at Jeff Wolf's sizzle reel here. He's done this, and this. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Hey, and let's get a Guns N' Roses song in the background that makes it sound cool or something. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. But how do from those types of setbacks, because that happens on a personal level as leaders, we experience those in our personal lives, our teams. The people on our teams have those types of setbacks where it affects them directly, someone in in their family, but also the company, gets hit with something, changes in the market. One company I've done some work with, they were struggling because there'd been a technology change. They were the technology leader for a couple of decades, and all of a sudden they're struggling to be relevant.
Right. I mean, it's like I keep saying, the whole relevancy of being a good leader. And you said it earlier, 60%, and we're going to consider you a great leader, 60% right decisions. Well, it doesn't sound like a great batting average, but think about it this way. 40% of the time I have to admit that I made a mistake on it. And if I can do that, if I've created that culture where I can be vulnerable in front of the team and go, yep, I screwed that one up. Here's what I'm going to do from here on. The fall down 7 times, get up 8. Here's what I learned, and here's how it's not going to happen again, or I'm going to ameliorate it to something lesser next time. It's the whole thing is challenges come at us, events. Well, who could have predicted a pandemic? And there's going to be an outcome. Yeah. What you do as a leader to alter, change, or affect that outcome makes a big difference. If you do nothing, there's still going to be an outcome. And if you do nothing, negativity will fill that gap, guaranteed. So put that positive leadership in there. Have some tools, some skills and the personality to accept challenges and accept being told, no, that's not right, to improve. It's all part of a continuous improvement process for you personally,
It's something that came up in a conversation recently, how from a leadership perspective, we're so, there's so much focus on us and what's going on internally and who we are as people and how we're growing, because that's so fundamental to leadership, because it all flows from, if I'm not working on being better with people, technical skills are important. It's kind of the price of entry. But really in the leadership journey, it's about us on a very personal level to develop. Is that a proper perspective in order to be more effective as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's a great perspective. It's really boils down to teaching yourself how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, because it's not comfortable to be a leader. I mean, if you're satisfied with what you're doing as a leader, then you're kind of sitting on your laurels and you're not moving forward. So teach yourself how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, because that's what business is about. That boiling pot of water. There's nothing we can do about it. That the volatility, the competition, the uncertainty. And this is my tagline, you can be that coffee bean that enters that water and starts changing that water fundamentally. Ooh. And if I can get some other people on the team to be coffee beans, now we got a chance of making some gourmet coffee out of this. So leaders are creating leaders, and to create that culture that connects with the vision or the mission. Yeah, this is where I fit in, and this is what we're doing. And you just repeat, this is what you're doing, and this is how you're contributing to it. You have a purpose, you're essential to this team. If you're not, we need to go different directions here,
Well, and there's also the effect of, and this was something that was a turning point in how I viewed what I was doing professionally. You know, I had a leadership role with a team. It was a problem-solving oriented situation. But I'm sitting there looking around the room and going, because I knew all the people in the room, and it's like I was the least. I was the least. Pretty much the least IQ, least everything that I could list out from these other people, magnified by the imposter syndrome. But the reality was, I'm going, man, how did I get in a situation? And they're like turning and looking at me and going, okay, now it's go time.
Yeah.
So as leaders, especially in business, we need to be able to surround ourselves with people that are way smarter and way better, at least in the things that we need them to do. But the broader that is true for them, the stronger our companies will be. But man, that is talk about being uncomfortable, because it raises that question of going, what with a hotshot team like this, why am I here? What am I really bringing to the table?
Yeah, I think Jack Welch, the GE guy, said something along the lines, or I think, I don't know if I'm quoting him or somebody else, but it's if you're in a room full of people that you're smarter than, you need to get a different room. Surround yourself with smarter people than you, and it will inspire you to be better. But you're absorbing things from them. You're using their talents. You're inspiring them, and that's an uncomfortable situation. If you think everybody's smarter than you, but that's a good place to be, because you're going to learn and you're going to move forward and you're going to get better.
Yes. When it's coming from that perspective of there's actual data on that. It's not just an emotional flaw
right
on my part. Because you touched on imposter syndrome earlier, which I think is that's
I
when
think everybody's going to suffer that at some time. Yeah. So
it's excellent. I'm watching the time. Can you stay for a few more minutes? Can we go an extra 10 minutes?
I was looking at the time. I was going, whoa.
It's really going fast. We're just barely scratching the surface, because I wanted to ask if you could share some more about your second book, because you touched on your first one. It Takes More Than Hard.
The second book is actually an Amazon bestseller. It's a
congratulations.
It's a collaborative book. It's engaging speakers, voices of truth. There's 24 chapters in it, and it's basically origin stories of all 24 of the writers, and I have one chapter in it. And it was actually a fun one to do. I'm working on my third book. I haven't decided on an actual title yet, but I think I'm going to try and work Be a Bean in there to start transforming your team to attract talent. But it's connecting the vision or the culture with the vision. And I've been interviewing, I guess I'm up to about 15 CEOs, the entire gamut from Brad Smith and my old CEO at Alaska Airlines, Brad Tilden, to some of the local companies around here that have 40 or 50 employees. And there's a lot of commonality, but there's also some really refreshing ideas that come from the whole gamut of people that I've talked to. And that one's been fun. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to organize this. It may be a CEO per chapter with whatever nuggets they came up with. Man, there are some really cool people that I've interviewed that have a lot more knowledge on things than you would expect from somebody that's we typically look at businessmen and women. We look down our nose at them because they're money grubbers, and they're I don't know, whatever all the bad things that we think about. But there's some really sharp people that I've talked to. All of them have something to contribute.
Well, that was I heard Bob Metcalf, who was invented Ethernet and was founder of the company 3Com, and do an interview, and he said, someone asked me what my social thing was, and he goes, just looked at him and said, I don't know, I connected 4.5 billion people to the internet. How's that?
Yeah.
It's like,
magically are magnificently understated, right?
Right. He followed up with, but he goes, one of the challenges we have today is people want to tell me that some people, they want to tell him that doesn't count because he did it for a profit.
Oh,
Back to
yeah.
that kind of
He's still
looking down their nose.
connected.
It's like,
Hey,
well, you can't make it happen if there's not some cash flowing somewhere because
right.
that's expensive.
We can't begrudge him that.
Yeah.
He did connect. Whatever that. What was it? 4.5 billion or 3?
Yeah, I think at the time of the interview, there was 4.5 billion people
Yeah.
connected to the internet, and
Yeah.
and without Ethernet, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing right now
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the internet would be raging. I would just have no way to
Yeah.
plug into it so that I could reach out to you because we're in different states.
Yeah.
And,
So,
but it's so I'm looking forward to that book. I was just making a note as you're watching this. You want to keep in touch with Dennis because that book, if nothing else, that book is going to be absolutely worth every moment and every penny you invest in getting a copy.
yeah. Okay.
or
Thanks
two.
for the plug. I appreciate it.
Well, no, because that type of that type of conversation always fascinates me because so much more comes out of it as leader to leader.
Yeah.
And it's because of the experiences that you've had and the leaders that you're interviewing have had, it's a different conversation.
Right.
And there's more of those. I always find that there's more of those. Oh, wow. Yeah. What a great way to look at it. Oh, okay. That shifted my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were talking about earlier about the perspective on the actual role that we're playing as leaders and what it is that we need to be focused on as opposed to a technical expert.
Well, and it goes to your personality, how you come across, whether you're vulnerable to, and whether you're genuine and authentic and as transparent as you're allowed to be. There's certain proprietary things that you can't blurt out in front of everybody, but you can let them know. Like I was talking to my wife again. She they ended up letting somebody go at work. And she just disappeared. I go, why? Why did she get fired? For my own personal thing, so I don't do it. But why did she get fired? Nothing said. At least, she didn't follow our company handbook, blah, 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 or something like that, But like I said before, nothing. So what happens? Negativity fills in there. Oh, she must have done something like this, or
cue the grapevine.
I heard she did this. I heard, it's the water cooler talk that makes it not as transparent as you need to be. Yeah, you can't give the official reason or the exact incident, but you can say she didn't comply with the company handbook in this way,
and if you don't, the rumors that start will be way worse than anything.
Absolutely.
Whatever the reality
negativity
was.
fill in the gap, and that just sucks the energy out of the company, and you lose credibility. Quite frankly. So
now, have you been working with companies on these types of issues?
Yeah, I have. One company in particular has been, or one facet of the company has been working with healthcare management, healthcare senior living facilities. They have a serious problem with healthcare worker turnover. If I can get 25 cents an hour more over at this other place, I'm going to go over there. Well, why don't you spend a little bit of money on your leadership to inspire your team or on the culture so that they go, you know what, extra $200 a week, I'd rather stay here. Or, the commute's better here, but I like the people here. And where does that kind of thing show up in a financial statement? You spent some money, but you're retaining your talent. You retain that. You want to be that talent magnet that not only attracts more talent, but keeps the talent that you have. And I think that's one of the things that is coming out with the quiet quitting. They're afraid to change jobs, but you've lost them. Like I said, 5:01 in the afternoon, they're gone. You're not going to see them.
Yeah,
you know,
I've
they're
seen
not
it. It's quitting time, and you watch people actually sprint to their cars.
right. They're not
It's
going to
like,
be picking up the napkin off the floor
no,
or the Dak Prescott taking a plastic bottle and putting it in the trash where it belongs. They're
yeah.
just going,
So
oh well, somebody else will take care of that. That's not my
what
job.
kind of customer service does that
Oh yeah,
eventually result in, and
yeah,
what kind of quality operations or excellence in
right,
what the company's doing
right,
internally?
yeah,
Mm, that's timely and powerful.
yeah. It is. So
So is that what you're focused on now? Working with organizations on those types of leadership issues? Or?
exactly. I'm a John Gordon certified trainer.
Okay.
He's like a John Maxwell, Jack Canfield. He's got
Mm-hmm.
this power of positive leadership where I work with teams. It's an all day. We don't call it a workshop because as we're more facilitators, because the genius is always in
Mm-hmm.
the room. Think of all the experiences that you bring in and
Yeah.
perspectives. So you're more of a facilitator, and you get people actually thinking about it. Thinking about how do I inspire people to that next level of performance, or how do I retain talent or attract talent?
Mm-hmm.
This is a great place to work. Or they come in and the first impression is, man, there's a lot of empty cubicles around here. So that's an important an important principle to promote,
Sure.
I think.
Cool. Because do you want them to walk in and go, oh, there's a lot of empty cubicles here. Did I make a bad choice of being part of this organization?
Yeah.
Or they walk in and go, oh, room for growth. I better call my friends that are,
Or
high
one of the
performers like
companies,
me, because there's stuff, there's room for stuff to happen here.
one of the companies I work with or talked with, their culture is incredible. When you first walk in, here's this big, huge plaque with their mission statement and their values, and you can't help but being impressed by it, because as you walk by it, the employees will typically point it out because they're proud of what they do too. And here it is in front of everybody, every client, for them to see and to hold them to that standard.
Well, to be able to work for an organization like that, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, I get to
It's
go
like,
to work at this place.
yeah. It's not oh gosh, what's the last minute that I can leave and still get there?
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to I get to go in, so I want to be in a couple minutes early so I can grab my coffee and say hi to a couple people before.
And we're working on
really
such exciting things here,
Yeah.
and we're getting I'm thrilled with the additional skills that you're allowing me to get. I need to get up to speed on this software, but I can't
Mm-hmm.
find the time for it. Set aside the time, and we'll delay some of this other stuff, because that's what's going to improve, and that's what's going to inspire that team member.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're letting me do some other things here. Eventually, I'll be able to go into this position, or we've mapped out your career path to being a VP or a C-suite or CEO. You've got to have experience in all these things and learn all these things along the way. It's not abracadabra.
Right.
You're a leader, and now we're going to make you the CEO of 10,000 employees.
No, but it's the you want to be about the top ballerina, the top opera singer, the top NFL quarterback. Here's what it takes to get there.
Right.
Here's what that path looks like.
Right. And expect it not to be
makes.
a smooth path.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I listened to somebody that told a story of being in an elevator with Mikhail Baryshnikov.
Yeah.
And they had a chance, so they're going up to a number of floors. They had a few moments to chat, and one of the things that Baryshnikov did was he kicked off a shoe, because everybody wants to be a high performer, to dance like we do or like I do, and then he kicked off a shoe until they see this.
Yeah.
and he looked at how beat up his foot was from
Yeah.
all of the practice and all the work that he had to do.
Yeah. 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 And it's one of those things. I use the story of, I've forgotten what town you're in.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Let's say you want to go to Disney World in Orlando. There's 3 or 4 different ways. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer.
Mm-hmm.
You keep Disney World in mind, but along the way, just like when you're driving your car, you have to take care of that next 200 feet. And once
Yep.
you take care of that, the next 200 feet and the next, and expect a detour or a traffic accident or weather or something like that. Or maybe you have to completely divert, or you decide to go a different direction and then go, no, I think I still want to go to Disneyland. It's taking care of that next next 200 feet, kind of like driving at night with your headlights. You can't see further than 200 feet, but you certainly have to take care of that 200 feet,
Absolutely. And depending on where you're driving, you got to watch for the deer or the raccoons that are, lurking along the side of the road that could.
The challenges that you're going to face,
Yeah.
So,
well, Dennis, we're over time. I appreciate you staying longer. It's just, we could go for we probably, let's talk about doing this again.
Okay.
Because there's so much more
to.
that we can talk about.
Yeah.
And, as you're watching this, if you want to build an organization, if you're watching Wolf's Watch, you're likely an entrepreneur. And do you want to build the kind of organization that, basically your team will walk across broken glass to get to continue to be part of? Dennis is the person you need to get in touch with to do that, because that's what he and his team, that's their expertise.
Yeah.
Working on how do you develop the leaders? How do you develop? What does that look like? How do you develop the leaders in what the environment that leads to that?
Yeah. I want to convert them all to coffee beans so that they transform that business into gourmet coffee some way,
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and as you can see down below, reach out to Dennis at beabean.net for more on his books, his upcoming book. But also, if you've got a question, we're watching. This is Wolf's Watch is 21st century television. We're live and interactive. We're watching questions and comments as they come in. If you've got a question, you're watching this on replay, reach out to Dennis and he'll respond back and get your question answered. You can put the question in the comments too. We'll be watching that and make sure that it gets to Dennis so that he can answer your question for you. There's so much more. And this is a time where business has always been about relationships. The last 2.5 years has put a super fine point on that.
Yeah, I would love to reach out and talk about how my Power of Positive Leadership training can help your team. I would love that. Or even your one-on-one coaching. I can do that to help you out too.
And it's very hands-on. It's very hands-on too.
Yes.
Sometimes I hear that power of positive something. That's not a woo-woo statement. If you don't mind me using the woo, it's very hands-on. It's very practical. Things that you can apply and do that create that kind of environment. It certainly makes leading the business a lot more fun and makes it a lot more enjoyable experience. I worked with a vice president of operations that we're sitting across the desk from him. We're talking about a morale problem. We're in the process of laying off people again. And he looks at me and goes, they're not supposed to enjoy it. That's why it's called work.
Oh, no.
I was like,
not when you spend
really?
the amount of time you do on it. Yeah.
At the time that you need everybody to step up because the company's having some struggling. And you don't want to become that guy or that gal as you're watching this. So Dennis is the person you need to reach out to not do that and to create the kind of environment that people want to be part of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I certainly enjoyed the opportunity to talk here. I know we went way over, and I hope that your viewers and your listeners got something out of it. If I made a difference today, it was well worth it.
Well, I tell you what, Dennis, I've got some notes here. As you're watching this, you should have some notes by this point as well. Go take action on them. Speaking of which, Dennis, if you've got just a couple more minutes for a quick after action review when we're finished,
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, I'll see
And
it.
because this is something, as you just watched this whole thing with Dennis and I, and Dennis talked about that, doing reviews, doing after action reports. That's something that we practice as well. I've been mentored and coached on that, and it's something you should be doing. Dennis, thank you so much. I appreciate the extra time. Thank you as you're watching this for, smash that like button, add in the comments, ask questions. We'll still be responding afterwards, after the show, after the live portion of the show's over. And this has been Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I will see you on the trail.